What's going on, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the show. Welcome to Habs After Dark. My name is Devin, and we are here to talk about the Montreal Canadiens. They fall for the second consecutive game um, to the Washington Capitals. This time they fall 3-1 to the Capitals, and not a very different game from game one, right? Game one was 3-2 in overtime. The Canadiens tonight were unable to tie the game up late in the game like they were able to do in game one, and they fall 3-1 to a more experienced and a team that's better than they are right now. I mean, it's as simple as that, right? The Washington Capitals are better than the Montreal Canadiens. When the Canadiens don't play their best hockey. If the Canadiens play their best hockey the way they did in each of the third periods of this series, I think you're looking at a different result. But being a young and experienced team playing playoff hockey for the first time, this is a group that doesn't always bring their best to the table. And, it's not, I don't think it's an effort thing. I don't think it's a situation where they're not trying. It's just, a matter of not being able to answer the bell or to live up to the situation that's being put in front of them. And so that's, I think, again, what happened tonight, right? The game, came out. They started a little bit, nervous, and they were gripping their sticks a little tight, and they just couldn't get it done. And by the time they figured it all out, it was too late. Rusty says, "How did the boys play? Couldn't watch the game." Again, very similar to game one, right? They struggled through the first two periods and then turned it on sort of in the last 15 minutes of the game. Unfortunately, they weren't able to get the tying goal tonight to take the game into overtime. Randy N has a question. Let me explain to me how players fall and no penalties are called. Can players fall down by themselves while trying to get a goal? But again, similar to game one, the referees were horrendous tonight. It was really bad. And again, I'm not saying that it's that they did anything to favor the Canadiens, but the referees have made a conscious decision to let the game play out and not be very involved in the game, which is fine. But unfortunately, that's going to favor the team that's being more physically aggressive, right? If you're being more physically aggressive and the referees aren't calling any penalties, the benefit goes to the team that's being physically aggressive, right? It's their benefit. They benefit from it. So when they're doing things that are against the rules and not getting called, then it tonight we had another two cross checks to the face for Montreal Canadiens players, and the referees just refused to call them. We had another scenario where Pierre-Luc Dubois had his helmet knocked off, and rather than go to the bench like he's required to do by the rules, he continued to play. He played the puck, and then he also finished a body check. And the rule says that he must, return to the bench in a reasonable amount of time, and he didn't. He didn't, and that's not a judgment rule. That's not a discretionary rule. That's one that is in black and white in the rule book, and he didn't do it. So let's get a few things out of the way. One, the referees were terrible. Again, I don't think the referees are reffing against the Canadiens. I just feel like this idea that you ref in the playoffs in order to minimally impact the game is such a stupid concept, because when you don't call penalties, you do impact the game, right? When you call the game in a way to ensure that the game is even, or that one team doesn't get out ahead of the other team too far, then you are affecting the game. You are impacting the game. So in your effort not to impact the game, you're actually impacting the game even further. And that is what's happened in this series, right? The Capitals are a more physical team. They're coming out more physically. They're coming out with a game plan to hit and to try and intimidate the Canadiens defensemen in particular. And when they're allowed to get away with things that are against the rules, it certainly benefits them. When they're clearing the front of the net and they're able to cross-check players in the face to do so, they're getting a benefit from that when the referees are not calling it. So again, I'm not going to go on a great big long referee rant, but the refereeing and the officiating in the NHL is severely and significantly broken. There's a huge problem with refereeing in the NHL, and it's a big problem. The other thing I want to get out of the way too is, I know there's going to be lots of people who are going to be in here calling for Arbor Jackeye to join the lineup. Again, I don't agree with it. I don't think that's the right move. I know that a lot of people do, and I know that the media is feeding that narrative, and that they're spreading that narrative that the Canadiens need more toughness, and that they need to add Jackeye to the lineup. My response to that is simply this: one, I think it would be a mistake to put Jackeye in the lineup for his first playoff game when he hasn't played in nearly a month. I think the possibility that would be too much for him to handle, and that would be a scenario where he might struggle. I think the risk of that is too great to take that chance. Two, who are you taking out of the lineup? Who are you taking out in order to put Jackeye in the lineup? Are you taking Savard out of the lineup? Are you taking Struble out of the lineup, or are you taking one of the other defensemen out of the lineup? So that's my second response to that. My third response to that is, what impact do you think that Arbor Jackeye would have, and how would these last two games have been any different if Arbor Jackeye had been in the lineup? So ask yourself that question. Would Arbor Jackeye, make Tom Wilson be more afraid to be physical? Would Arbor Jackeye make the Washington Capitals stop hitting? Would Arbor Jackeye make them change their game plan? Would they be so scared of Arbor Jackeye fighting them or hitting them back that they wouldn't do it? That they would, oh my God, we can't play physical anymore because Arbor Jackeye is out there. What are we going to do? We have to change our game plan. Do you envision that happening? And three and four, I guess the fourth thing would be, what is it that you think that Arbor Jackeye would do? Like, just in most basic terms, do you think he would, hit guys? Do you think he would fight every guy that hits Lane Hudson or hits Caden Gooley or hits Alex Carrier? Like, what do you think Jackeye's game would look like? I mean, we've seen the Montreal Canadiens spend the last year and a half trying to shift Jackeye away from being a quote-unquote goon, right, and to develop his game beyond his physical and his fighting and all of that other stuff, and now do you want him to go out there and have a Ryan Reeves type role? Like, what do you do you want him to play 4 or 5 minutes and just come off the bench to go out there and fight guys who hit? I don't know. I don't understand what it would look like. So that's one thing I just want to get out of the way. Because my view, frankly, is that the Canadiens are obviously not carrying the physical play. I'm not going to pretend that that's the case, but the hits tonight were 30-23. So again, less than 10 hits difference between the two teams. Very similar to the last game. So the narrative that the Canadiens are being physically dominated here, and that it's somehow, impacting the rest of their game, I don't think is an accurate one, right? Just like last game, we saw in the third period, the Canadiens are very capable of playing the game, and getting scoring chances and playing their style of game in the face of Washington's so-called physical game. And I don't know that the physical game is what's costing Montreal anything here. And it's a scenario where let's just relax. Like the Canadiens have just played two very tight games against the best team in the Eastern Conference when realistically they weren't even expected to be in the playoffs. And so, like, are we again, Montreal Canadiens fans have a tendency to want to fix things all the time. And as soon as things, even if things are not going badly, if there's a perception that things might not be perfect, all of a sudden this guy needs to be benched, or this guy needs to be moved down to the fourth line, or this guy needs to be that. Like, they just played two really, really tight games on the road. They're the youngest team in the to make the playoffs in whatever, how many years, it's 25 or 30 years or whatever it is. And they've just played two really tight games against the number one seed on the road in Washington. So let's see how things go in Montreal when they get home, and the Canadiens are playing in front of their home crowd, and there's get a little bit of energy from that, and let's just see how that goes. Like there's no need to panic here. And at the end of the day, they're playing with house money. They're not expected to even be where they're at right now. So let's not get all panicky, and let's not fill the comment section with, this guy needs to come out of the lineup, or that guy needs to be in the lineup, or the coach sucks, or this. Like, let's try not to go there, right? Let's try not to be like so many of the other, the other, channels or outlets or social media sites where everyone's kind of freaking out. Let's try and be a little bit more objective and a little bit more nuanced about the way we talk about the game. So, anyways, those are the two things I guess I want to get off my chest before the game, before we get started here, and let's talk about it some more, guys. So. Paul Menard says they only showed up in the third. Again, I don't disagree with that, Paul. I'm not saying. I think I disagree with the sentiment a little bit. I'm not. I don't think it's fair to suggest that they didn't show up in the sense that they didn't try or bring enough effort in the first and second period. They're trying. They're trying, guys. The idea that they're not trying or they're not giving their best effort, I think is kind of silly. Washington's a good team. The Capitals are a good team. The Canadiens are a good team, but they're young. And sometimes it's hard to get there. I heard Newhook and Evans missed open net. Evans definitely, had they both had really good opportunities to score. Logan Thompson was good, but both missed on really, really good opportunities to score. Welcome, Claude. Claude Richard is back with his Go Habs Go. I appreciate the comment, Claude. Merci. Rusty, I am a fan of Newhook, but man, he misses crucial finishing. Yeah, he's a little bit snake bit right now. He's struggling to finish. And he's been probably in that boat since for the better part of the year. I think the idea that the fact that he's getting scoring chances, I think, is positive. And the fact that if he wasn't getting any scoring chances, I think it'd be a lot more concerning. But once he gets a goal or two, then hopefully you'll see the floodgates kind of open up for him. But we'll see. I think the fact that he's getting scoring chances is an indication that he's a pretty decent player. Listen, guys, if you're on TikTok, Canadiens go down 3-1 to the Washington Capitals. Game 2 of the NHL playoffs, Eastern Conference Round 1. If you're over there on TikTok, feel free to come and join us on YT. The channel is at the very top of the screen. Pop on over and join us over here. The refs are hilarious. It has been 2 games now where they have missed cross-checks to the face with blood drawn. I don't disagree, James. I don't disagree. It's, the problem is that it's become so déclassé to criticize the referees, and it's almost become a thing, a sign of weakness when you're criticizing the referees, right? You're not a good hockey fan if you criticize the referees. The refereeing and the officiating in the NHL is broken. Period. End of sentence. There's no discussing. There's no debating it. The problem is that nobody wants to talk about it, and nobody wants to try and fix it. So I'll continue to say my piece over here. But again, the problem is that, it automatically gets dismissed as, just being, sour grapes, or your team lost, so you're mad at the referees. Well, no, I bitch about the referees just as often when the Canadiens win as when they lose. And, the refereeing, officiating, the rules, everything in the NHL around officiating is broken, period. Whether the Canadiens win, lose, or otherwise, it's the biggest weakness of the NHL. It's the reason why the NHL will remain behind the NFL, the NBA, MLB, all the other sports. It's the reason why it will never, ever, ever get on the same level with those, because the refereeing and the officiating is brutal, period. Billy D, Montembeault deserved a medal that game. Yeah, he played spectacularly, right? Like, that's what I've said all along about Montembeault. There's a lot of people out there, including people on this broadcast who have talked about Montembeault not being a number 1 goalie, and that he's not good enough, and that they should play Dobash, and this. Montembeault gives you a chance to win most nights. And tonight's no different. He made the big saves when it mattered. He's not going to have the big gaudy numbers, but, um, he's a guy who makes the saves when they count. And more often than not, he's going to give you a chance to win. The Washington Capitals definitely have the most cross-checks to the head in a Stanley Cup playoff series. I don't know about the other teams, but I would assume that 4 in 2 games is pretty close to an NHL record. Flux, I would agree with you that. Welcome, by the way, Flux. I think you're new here. I don't think I've seen you before, but welcome. If you're not yet subscribed, hit the button down below, guys. That goes for everybody. If you're here watching the show and you haven't subscribed yet, we would certainly ask you to do so. The more the merrier. We're trying to get our numbers up. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers. So if you are interested and you enjoy the content, please do so. Hit the thumbs up as well. That certainly helps us too. But if we can get to 500 subscribers, there's lots of different cool things that YouTube allows us to do, and we would certainly love for you to be a part of it. Yes, Nicholas is also talking about the cross-checks. So is Paul Menard. I understand playoff hockey, but the refs let them play, sit in the stands. Again, this is a strategy. This is a strategy by the referees, right? In the playoffs, they don't want to, quote unquote, affect the game, right? They don't want to have an impact on the game. Well, they are having an impact on the game, right? By deciding at the outset that they're not going to call as many penalties, they're having an impact on the game, right? When they allow Cole Caulfield to get cross-checked in the face in front of the net when the puck is sitting there, they're impacting the game, right? Everybody thinks that you're not impacting the game because you're not giving a team a power play, right? By not giving out power plays, you're somehow not impacting the game. But what you're doing is you're taking the ability of one team to score away, and it's just so simple-minded that it doesn't make sense. But again, nobody's calling them out on it, and nobody seems to be concerned about it. So, who am I to say? Do I think the Habs need to be bigger and body check more? No, not necessarily, Randy. Again, they're just as big as the Washington Capitals, right? As far as average weight goes, the Canadiens are basically the same size as the Capitals. I believe they're 7th or 8th in the NHL as far as average weight. Do they need to be a little bit more physical? Being physical is not easy, right? Everyone thinks that you can just go out there and hit. You have to be, the timing has to be right for you to hit. And when you're nervous and when you're hesitant a little bit, when you're young and you're inexperienced, getting those hits is not as easy as you think, right? You can't, it's easy to say, oh, they should go out there and hit more, but it's, it's not easy, right? It's not easy to get hits. Hits don't just come to you. And so I think that, part of that is the fact that they're a little bit hesitant. The timing's off, and Cole Caulfield isn't going to go out and throw great big body checks. Lane Hudson's not going to go out there and throw great big body checks, but Gallagher can, and Gooley can, and Anderson can, and again, the hits tonight were 30-23, right? Not a huge difference between the two teams. So, so I guess the answer to your question is no. And I think that the Canadiens have, part of their identity is that they're not going to be a big physical team, right? That's not their identity. Like, yes, they're going to have some guys who are going to be physical, but they're more of a team that's going to, be fast and quick and so on. So. Do I know if Laine was injured? I don't believe he was injured. I think there were a few guys who were benched at the end of the game. Armia didn't play a whole lot. Laine didn't play a whole lot. There were a few guys who didn't really get into the game towards the end. We need Jack-Eye. Again, don't agree. Don't agree, Paul. I told you why. I'm not going to get into it. I'm not going to go on a back and forth. Again, Paul, I disagree with you as well. You're talking about Laine. St. Louis didn't sit him because his game, he's not the only. Again, I don't understand why Laine is the one that everyone's talking about. Laine wasn't the only one who sat. Right? Laine is not the only guy who was benched. Heineman was benched. Armia was benched. Laine played more minutes than Armia, Heineman, and Savard tonight, right? So why are we picking out Laine, right? Marty St. Louis decided that there was, he wanted to shorten his bench and he wanted to put the players out on the ice that he felt gave them the best chance to score a goal late in the game when they were looking to tie it up. Right? It's not Patrick Laine that they benched. They didn't bench Laine because his game was a struggle, as Paul says. They sat a number of guys on the bench because they used the guys who they thought provided them the best chance to win. I agree with you. Jack-I doesn't need to be in the lineup. Besides, his playing time would probably be 10, 12 minutes a game. Yeah, probably less. Like Savard only played 9 minutes and 33 seconds tonight. Savard was a bit winded or slow in that first Capitals goal. Yeah, he's slow, right? Savard is slow, right? Again, Savard is not very good in 5-on-5 anymore. I mean, for whatever reason, Canadiens fans give him a break and don't really call him out on it like they do about Laine. For whatever reason, there's a hate there for Laine. But again, Savard has become a very one-dimensional player. He's a penalty killer and a guy who's going to be on the ice when you need some defensive play late in a game, right? The other team pulls their goalie or whatever. You're going to be trapped in your own zone. You want to have Savard on the ice, but realistically, he doesn't give you that much 5-on-5. Jack-I would get good hits and give good energy to... Yeah, wrong. He wouldn't. Jack-I doesn't lead the team in hits. Like, he's not, like, again, I'm not getting into the whole Jack-I thing. I've explained my point of view. I don't agree with this narrative. I think it's dumb. I think it's dumb to think that you're going to insert Jack-I into the game and good energy. Well, they're like, Caden Gooley can get good hits. Caden Gooley throws more hits than Arbor Jack-I does, and he can bring energy to the game too, right? So can Josh Anderson. So like a lot of guys can. I just feel that the big bodies of the Capitals are scaring the Habs from holding the puck and bringing it into the zone. I don't disagree, Randy. I don't disagree, but that's because they're hesitant, right? They're easier to hit because they're holding onto the puck a little bit longer, because they're nervous, because they're playing in the playoffs for the first time in their life. Right, so when you go back, into your own end to pick up that puck, and a big Washington forward is bearing in on you to forecheck, and you hold on to that puck for an extra, half a second, because you're feeling fully comfortable and confident back there, then that sometimes can give them another opportunity to hit you. I'm not blaming Montembeault. What I wouldn't mind a little Halak magic to get passed down to Monty. I don't see how you could expect anything more from Montembeault than what he's given. Yes, the refs did suck again, Asim. I agree with you completely. Tap that screen, guys. Like, share, and follow over on TikTok. Come on over here to Recliner Sports 4 on YT. Join the show. Si vous voulez parler en français, si vous avez des questions en français, on parle au sujet du match des Canadiens de Montréal contre les Capitals de Washington. Un match de la première ronde des séries éliminatoires de la conférence de l'Est de la LNH. Canadiens Capitals, round 1, game 2. The Capitals 3, the Canadiens 1. Slap more bodies in front of Thompson. The goalies were on fire. Again, you say that like it's an easy thing to do, Randy. Slap more bodies in front. Yeah, if it were that simple and they could just slap more bodies in front of Thompson, they would. Guess what? Washington has defensemen, and their job is to keep guys from getting in front of the net. And it's not just a matter of slapping more bodies in front of the net, right? You try and get your guys to the front of the net, and they try and stop you from getting to the front of the net, right? That's hockey. It's not like, it's not like, okay, guys, listen, we need to slap more bodies in front of the net. They're trying. I don't blame the refs for loss. Just pissed that refs are useless. Why have 2 refs? One ref during standard games in the NHL. Again, I don't have a problem with the numbers of refs. I just think that the referees need to be trained in such a way to understand the game a little bit better. They don't understand the game better. They don't understand the game enough. Like they truly believe that they're. And again, I don't know whether this is the league is telling them this or where that's coming from, but they truly believe that they're doing the best job by not calling penalties, by quote unquote allowing the players to play and not not having too much of an effect on the game. I like Newhook, Demidov, Evans line. I don't. Was that a line? Was that a line? Who's the centerman on that line? Asim? I wouldn't like that line. Jacky was a Costco worker. We got to let him play. Okay, I don't know how those two things relate to one another. Oops, hit the wrong button. If some speedsters like Newhook, Caulfield, or Demidov use their puck skills and skating and force the Capitals to make penalties, may increase their power play chances. So again, they're trying all these things, guys. They're trying. Like, it's not like Demidov is like, I'm not going to use my speed on this shift. I'm not gonna use my puck skills. They're trying. They're trying. The Capitals are a good team, right? They didn't finish first in the conference for no reason, right? This is a really good hockey team. So it's not like I'm not Caulfield's like, I'm not going to really skate as fast as I can on this shift because I really don't want to not. They're trying. They're trying. But unless they're playing together as a team, that stuff doesn't work, right? Unless they can come together and they can play their game, their structures, their defensive zone structure, their neutral zone game, you hear the coaches talk all the time about playing our game, right? We need to play our game. We need to play our game. The players, we need to be patient. We just need to keep playing our game. This is what they're talking about. One guy can't do it. They all need to do it, right? They need to have good defensive zone coverage. They need to kill plays in the defensive zone and turn that into offensive opportunities, right? Transition play. You kill a play in the defensive zone and you move the puck up right away, right? They're not doing that, right? They're not playing their game. They're not forcing Washington to respond to them. Instead, they're letting Washington play their game and they're responding to Washington. Right, so the best offense that the Canadiens get usually when they're playing their best hockey comes in transition. Savard seems checked out when he announced his retirement. He should have waited. I don't agree with that. He's not. I think since he announced his retirement, he's even more engaged. Yeah, I don't think you understand David Savard if you think he's checked out. He's trying. Peter, welcome. Peter, welcome back. Everyone take what this guy says with a grain of salt. He thinks he knows everything. Okay, well, I'm sorry, Peter. I don't know everything. I'm giving you my opinion, and I certainly invite all of you to give your opinions. I don't know what it is that I've said that's really turned you off or pissed you off so badly, Peter, but feel free to follow up. I think the Bell Center will be rocking on Friday. Yeah, I do. I agree, Randy, and I think that that will hopefully give the Canadiens a little bit more confidence, a little bit more jump, right? Like right now, I think the biggest thing they're struggling with is, they're not comfortable out there. It's to be expected to a certain degree. It's a very young group. For the most part, they haven't, played in the playoffs, very much, if at all. And, that's a tough place to be, whereas Washington is much, has a lot more veterans on their team. They're a lot more experienced, and they're coming off a pretty solid season. So I think playing in front of the Montreal fans and the crowd, and that energy will hopefully give them a little bit of a boost and a little bit of a bump. And again, there's no need to panic. Again, the Canadiens have lost in overtime, and they've basically lost another close game tonight on the road against the best team in the conference. So again, I don't know that there's any reason to get really too bothered. It's his POV, and most of the things he actually says he doesn't know everything. Okay, well, I don't know everything, Paul. Well, again, first of all, I don't know why you're saying we, Paul, Peter, because you don't play for the Montreal Canadiens, right? You're not on the team, so stop calling yourself we and stop associating yourself with your team. You're a fan. Right, you're a guy who watches hockey on TV. You're not part of the team. So referring to yourself as we is kind of silly. Yes, they're 0-2, but again, they're 0-2 on the road, right? They're the 8th seed playing against the number 1 seed. They're playing against the best team in the conference. Both games were very close as far as the score is concerned, and there are things to work on. But again, I think I've explained in great detail, why I don't think that moving Jack Eye into the lineup is a good thing. If you have alternate reasons why, again, you're certainly entitled to your opinion, but if you think he needs to come in the lineup, then explain to me why. Explain to me what you think would change, and what you think he would bring. And again, not just say, oh, he'd be tough and he'd throw lots of hits. Like, give me a real rational reason on why you think that bringing Arbor Jack Eye into the lineup would make a difference. And also tell me who you'd take out. Like, who would you take out of the lineup, right? Tonight, Jaden Struble was their best defenseman, right? Tonight, Jaden Struble, expected goals for percentage of second best defenseman, 54.93. In a game, that they lost. The only one with a better was Caden Gooley tonight. So who are you taking out? Are you taking out Struble? Are you taking out Savard? If you're taking out Savard, then all of a sudden you're going to have 5 left-handed defensemen and 1 right-handed defenseman. So tell me about that. No, Randy, I'm good. I'm just, we're having a discussion, and I don't agree with everything you say, and I'm sure you don't agree with everything I say. That's fine. What a surprise! James Costanis completely agrees with Peter. This team needs to change. Your suggestions are meaningless. Savard has been awful. Okay, well, he hasn't been awful. Tonight he was fifth best on the team as far as expected goals for percentage. He's slow. He's a one-dimensional player. But again, are you going to go into a playoff game with 5 left-handed defensemen and 1 right-handed defenseman, Peter? Is that do you think that that's a good idea? Have you been watching the team all year? Did you see how well Gooley plays when he's on his off wing? Have you seen how well Jaden Struble plays when he's on his off wing? Have you seen how Arbor Jack, how is that going to work if you take him out? And do you not have any concern whatsoever about Jack Eye coming into the lineup after sitting out for nearly a month? Do you not remember what happened with Michael Pezzetta when he came into the lineup after sitting as long as he has? Savard hasn't been awful. I wouldn't have any issue, quite frankly, with Savard coming out of the lineup, other than the fact that, he is one of their only right-handed defensemen, and he plays a really, really important role on the penalty kill, a role that they don't have somebody else. Who's going to play on the penalty kill if Savard comes out? Who's going to be that other penalty killer? And again, what's the big crisis that we're averting? You're a joke, buddy. You're upset that I called you out. I can say we if I want to. Bye. You lost a subscriber, and good luck getting to 500K. I'm not trying to get to 500K. You're at 345 with 16 viewers. Well, I'm sorry that you're so upset, Peter. Maybe you can go cry about it somewhere. Struble was their best D. I said he was their second best. As far as expected goals percentages, right? What is going on here? Yeah, maybe you could go and learn a little bit about hockey. Malacca, Carrier and Gooley, 5th out of 6th. Well, no, he wasn't. Why are you still here, Peter? You said that I lost a subscriber, but you're still here talking. Well, he is a one-dimensional player, absolutely, but that dimension's an important one. But again, like I've expressed, I like Jack Eye. I don't think Jack Eye should have came out of the lineup when Gooley came back. Right when Gooley came back, I frankly thought that Jack Eye probably was the better option over Struble, and I argued that here on this show and in other places. But Struble had been playing really, really good hockey when Jack Eye came back, or sorry, when Gooley came back, and that's why he stayed in the lineup and Jack Eye came out. I would have tried to find a way to try and rotate the two of them so that they were both fresh and available for the playoffs. But unfortunately, the playoffs went down to the very last, the playoff race went down to the very last game of the season. And so from Marty St. Louis' perspective, he felt that Struble gave the team the best opportunity to win. If they clinched a playoff spot, 3 or 4 or 5 games before the end of the season, I think you probably would have seen Jack Guy get into the lineup. But as it stands, Jack Guy hasn't played in a month. And putting a 22-year-old kid into his very first NHL playoff game when he's stale and hasn't been out of the press box for that long is potentially dangerous. He's a professional athlete. Of course he's a professional athlete. But again, to suggest that, just because he's a professional athlete that he's going to, step into the lineup, he's going to struggle. He's going to struggle anyway. Right? We're seeing all kinds of players on the team struggle playing in their first playoff games. But you're also going to add on to that the fact that he hasn't played for a month? Yes, he's been training effortlessly, but that's not gameplay, Peter. Are we going to deny that players sometimes struggle when they don't play for a while? Are we going to pretend that that's not a thing? Are we going to pretend that sometimes players come back from being out of the lineup for a period of time and need to adjust and get back into playing competitive games? Are we going to pretend that's not a thing? Are we that transparent and dumb that we're going to pretend that that's not possible? Like, are we going to pretend that that's not a potential thing? Like that, when guys miss, a significant amount of time that it takes them, a few games to get into the mix, into the grand scheme of things. Savard is done with this team in possibly 2 more games. Jack Guy should be getting more experience. Yes, I agree, James, and he will. He will. They're not going to take Savard out of the lineup in his last 2 games in the NHL. They're not. They've made a decision with Jack Guy that, that they're not going to play him. And unless there's an injury, he's probably not going to get in the lineup. So get over it. Get over it. They're not going to take a guy who is a huge moral leader in the dressing room and who has had a huge impact on, every defenseman on that team, including Arbor Jackeye. They're not going to take him out of the lineup at this stage of his career and at this stage of the playoffs. It's not going to happen. And again, they're not going to do it to put a guy in the lineup who hasn't played for over a month. Well, I'd love to, Randy, but he's not legit useless, James. Who's gonna be your first pairing defenseman on the penalty kill, James? If Savard's not there, who are you putting out on your first pairing PK? I'm not calling the shots for anybody, James. I'm just telling you what the concern would be if it were me. If it were me making the decisions, this is what I would be concerned about. Are you guys okay, James? You and Paul? Do you guys not, you guys going to be all right? Anyways, guys, while these guys are arguing with themselves, let's get to the scoreboard real quick. Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the scoreboard. Tonight, the scoreboard, we see no scoring in the first period, dominated by the Capitals the first period. The Canadiens do manage to somehow get on the board early in the second period and get out to a lead. Christian Dvorak from Anderson and Gallagher at 1:16. It looked like the Canadiens might, have gotten, broken the ice, and maybe that would give them some confidence to move forward in the game. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Washington came right back with 2 quick goals at 3:47 and 4:47. One from Connor McMichael on a bit of a lucky play. The defensive zone coverage let down, including by David Savard on that Connor McMichael goal, and he scored a bit of a lucky one where he bounced it in off the Canadian defenseman into the goal. Then Dylan Strome scored about a minute later from Beauvillier and Leonard to make it 2-1. And when he thought that the Canadiens were going to get a bit of a boost from that Christian Dvorak goal, were kind of dashed a little bit. The Canadiens did play much better in the third period. Unfortunately, they didn't find a way to tie things up, and Connor McMichael scored his second of the game and of the playoffs from Dubois and Wilson with 2 seconds left in the game into an empty net, and that was sort of all she wrote. Shots on goal, 32-26 for the Capitals, a bit misleading. The Canadiens dominated the third period as far as shots were concerned. Prior to the third period, the shots were much greater, more greatly in favor of the Capitals. The Corsi favored the Canadiens, 70-62. That's a bit of a possession stat there, which is a bit of a decent sign, I guess. The Fenwick was 49-46 in favor of the Capitals, again demonstrating how well the Capitals did as far as blocking shots and getting in shooting lanes and keeping the Canadiens from getting the puck to the net. They did a really good job of that tonight. I thought there were, their defensive zone, the coverage and shutting down those shooting lanes was really, really impressive tonight by the Capitals. I thought they did a really good job of that. High danger scoring chances favored the Capitals 15-9. Again, the Capitals didn't have as many opportunities and didn't have as many shots toward the goal, but when they did get it there, they certainly they got some good opportunities to score, and the expected goals were also in favor of the Capitals by about 1 goal. So expected goals was 359 for the Caps. They scored 1. The Canadiens would have been expected to score 2.5 goals. They only managed 1. And so, another indication that Logan Thompson had a pretty decent game, particularly in the third period. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Let's say goodbye to the Canstandia brothers. No, you're not entitled to an opinion, Asim. Only they are entitled to an opinion. So, it is what it is. But those are 2 guys that came over from TikTok, and I think they'll give you a pretty good understanding of why I don't do my show on TikTok anymore. Randy is guessing, are Paul and Randy, Gouli, Carrier, Armia, and Evans? No. I'm trying to think of who it was, my A team. You're guessing the A team, I assume. Do you think Montreal should go after Barzal, especially with Lou getting fired? I mean, if you can get Barzal for the right price, then maybe, you think about it. I think he's a guy who, maybe fits in the Canadiens' plan as far as age goes and so on. But am I, bending over backwards to get a guy like Barzal? No. But, again, if he's available at the right price and you can get a deal on him, then yeah, I would. Montreal is just a team that needs someone that can hit and need Reeves. No, Paul. No. Why would they need Ryan Reeves? I'm interested to hear the explanation of that. Yeah, those are, brother tandem, right, Billy D? They should both be, you could get 2 for the price of 1, and they could probably bring any team to a championship. Love that Lane Hudson subsite at the end of the game. Yeah, again, Washington's playing good hockey too, guys. Let's not lose sight of that, right? Washington's doing a pretty good job of shutting down the things that the Canadiens do best. Lane Hudson obviously got 2 points last game, but if you've noticed, he's not getting the same types of opportunities in the offensive zone that he typically gets, right? They've done a pretty good job of shutting that down. So why don't we do the A team here, guys? Let's get to it. So there's the A team for tonight, guys. It was a little bit difficult to pick guys tonight. Um, I don't think anybody really stood out as being spectacular tonight. The first line, did their first line things. Didn't have their best game. However, Lane Hudson, of course, I think, despite the fact that he's not getting the same types of opportunities, he sometimes does. He led the team in ice time tonight, I believe, at 25:36. Did Matheson have more than that? Yeah, Matheson had 25:07. So Hudson led the team in ice time at 25:36. Um, he was one of the better guys as far as expected goals percentage and all the other percentages. He's just turning out to be a very solid player and a solid defenseman for the Canadiens. L. Easy, what's going on? Too many small forwards on the Habs. Expand on that for me, L. Easy. Welcome, by the way. I don't think I've seen you here before. Welcome to the show. It's good to have you. And if you're not subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button on the screen down below, right down below here. But explain that. I'd like to know more about what that thought, L. Easy. Tell me what you mean by there's too many small forwards on the Habs. Who are you counting as a small forward, and why is it that you believe that there are too many of them on the team? I mean, assume you're referring to Caulfield. I assume you're referring to Newhook. But beyond that, are you considering Nick Suzuki to be too small? Who are you considering as small forwards on the Canadiens? I will tell you this: that the Canadiens are I believe, the 7th biggest team in the NHL right now. NHL ranking size. I think they're 7th or 8th. Team comparison. 2024-25. They are. Oops, daisy. So the Canadiens are the 8th heaviest team in the NHL at an average of 202 pounds. The Capitals are 1 pound bigger. 91.46 kgs for the Canadiens and 92.04 kgs for the Capitals. The Capitals are the 6th biggest team, and the Canadiens are the 8th biggest team. So, again, I'll let you explain further. I won't get into it any further. So, Struble, I thought, played strong tonight. I like Struble's game. Like, again, this whole Jack-Eye dispute or discussion, presumably Jaden Struble would be the player who would come out if Jack-Eye came into the lineup. And, you're taking out, one of your more physical players in Struble, right? So it's not like, you're getting a huge difference going from Struble to, Jack-Eye can fight and, Struble can fight too, but Jack-Eye's obviously better in that department. But Struble's probably going to get you more body checks and more hits. I thought he had a pretty good game tonight. Hudson, again, like I said, just solid Hudson as normal. Caden Gooley, I thought, had another good game. I would like to see, Gooley is a guy who can try and go out there and affect the game with his hitting. But again, I think we're seeing, what I talked about earlier, the idea that it's hard to go out there and throw hits in the NHL. Just because you want to doesn't mean it's going to happen. Gallagher, Caulfield, Suzuki. Line A is big but plays small. Anderson was really the only one really. Okay, well, Suzuki is 215 pounds. So I wouldn't go as far as to call Suzuki small. I agree with you. Line A doesn't play as big as his size. He does from time to time. Gallagher is small in stature, but again, I wouldn't suggest that, if you're going to say that Line A plays too small for his size, then you have to acknowledge that Gallagher plays much bigger than his size. Caulfield obviously is small, and Newhook is small, but again, at 202 pounds, the Canadiens are the 8th biggest team in the NHL. So I'm not sure I can agree with you on that. And getting back to the A team, guys, Sam Montembeault, again, 2 games in a row, proving that he's more than able to be a number 1 goalie in the league. again, he's having, he's arguably been the best player on the team so far this series. So um, that's all she wrote. All right, guys. I think I might end the show there. There doesn't seem to be a lot of conversation going on. True about Gallagher playing bigger than his size, but it's not enough. Okay. Um, I mean, again, the Canadians are not going to be more physical than the Washington Capitals. Whether there's Jack Eye in the lineup or whatever. I don't think that the team is too small. You know, I think that they probably will avoid bringing in other small forwards. Right? They're not going to go out and draft another 5'10" or 5'9" forward. I think they will stay away from that. And, I think it's one of the reasons why they stayed away from Mishkov. Um, but as far as what they have right now being too small, I don't think that that's borne out by the facts. They mostly draft people that are small and have good skill and moves are big. Well, I mean, Reinbacher, right? Not small. Slavkovsky, not small. I mean, are we considering Demidov small at 6'1"? Like, is he considered small? Like, what's the like? I don't know. I don't know. I don't buy that. I know that's another narrative. Like we get caught up a lot of times in Montreal in these narratives that get spread by different people in the media, whether it's former players or whether it's reporters or whether it's whatever. We get caught up in these narratives that Serge Savard went on this big long rant over the summer about the Canadians having all these small. Well, if they had such small forwards, they wouldn't be the eighth biggest team in the NHL. So I'm not sure. Again, if you hear these types of narratives, I would invite you to do your own research, right? Do your own, looking it up and find out whether, it's actually a real thing or whether it's, yeah, perceptively or perceptually, I guess maybe you could say that, the team is small, because you look at Caulfield and you look at Newhook and you look at Gallagher and whatever, but, um, it depends. It depends. So. Anyways, gang, I think I'm going to end the show there. Thanks very much for coming, guys. I appreciate all of you. Cosmo thought on Line A being benched. Don't think it's a big deal, Cosmo. Again, everyone keeps focusing on the fact that Line A got benched, but Armia and Heineman got benched too, right? It wasn't just Line A. So, I know Line A is a whipping boy, and everybody likes to shit on Line A, and he's a guy that there's a narrative going around about him. But playing small is what I really meant. Yeah, I could see that. I think that playing small is kind of it's kind of um, a symptom of their youth and their inexperience and the fact that they don't they're not comfortable out there. They're young kids. They're young kids, so they play hesitant. They play small. They don't get in the mix. They don't get involved, right? Like Ovechkin's out there hitting everything that moves. Well, guess what? Guy's been playing for 20 years. He's confident out there. He's comfortable out there. But yeah, everyone's making a big deal about Laine getting benched. But again, nobody's talking about the fact that the reality is I think the Canadians were looking for the best opportunity to score a goal, and for whatever reason, Marty St. Louis didn't feel like Laine, Heineman, and Armia were part of that. So. Yeah, of course there is, Cosmo. They haven't lost at home yet, right? They've lost 2 games on the road. Both games have been really close, as far as the score is concerned. Anyway, they're going back home to Montreal. Hopefully, they'll get a bit of a boost from playing in front of the home crowd. And you're not out of a series until you lose a game at home. So, we'll see. I think you'll see, Easy. I think you'll see certain guys on that team play bigger once they get. You're seeing Gouli, right? Gouli is far more physical player now than he was when he first came to the league because he's he's been around now and he knows what he can do and what he can get away with, and he knows what other people bring and all that stuff. But anyways, guys, I think I'm going to end the show there. We've been on for about an hour. Conversations. Not a lot of people in here right now, so thanks so much, guys, for coming. I appreciate everybody. Merci beaucoup tout le monde pour avoir venu. pour vos questions, pour vos commentaires. Merci. Thank you guys for your questions and your comments. Again, it was a disappointing loss for the Canadiens, 3-1. They're down 2-0 in the series now. The series does come back to, or not come back. It heads to Montreal on Friday. What's today? Wednesday. Today's Wednesday, right? Today's Wednesday. Yeah. So on Friday, the series will shift to Montreal. Friday and Sunday, the Canadiens will hopefully get a bit of a boost from the home crowd and see if they can get themselves back in the series. I don't think the Canadiens have played good so far in the series, but they certainly haven't played terribly either. There's a lot to work on. There's a lot of positives to take out of both of these games. I think the third periods have demonstrated to the team that they can certainly play with the Washington Capitals, that they're not outmanned, they're not overmatched. They can certainly play with them, and hopefully they can come out and play a full 60 minutes on Friday night, and they can be that can be a difference for them. So who do I think is worst position, Ottawa or the Habs? I think I would much rather be the Canadiens, to be quite honest with you, Cosmo, as far as the future is concerned. Ottawa doesn't have much in the way of prospects. I think Ottawa, on paper right now, probably has maybe a slightly better team. I think that but like, are you taking Caulfield, Suzuki? Are you taking Caulfield, Suzuki, and Slavkovsky? Or are you taking like Kachuk and Stützle and Pinto? Right, those guys are all a little bit further along in their careers. Not Stützle, I guess. But again, I think that the Canadiens have the better future. I think their prospects and the way that they've, managed and operated their organization over the last 3 or 4 years has been better, and it's put them in a better place. So anyways, I do appreciate Easy. Good night to you as well. Thank you for coming. I think you're new here, like I said, and I appreciated the good conversation and the good comments. I'd love the opportunity to chat some more. We will be live after the game on Friday as well. Hopefully, assuming everything goes to plan, and we'll see you guys all then. But for now, we're done, guys. Again, the Canadiens go down 3-1. They struggle to tie the game late in the game. They had chances, but they just weren't able to convert. They are now down 2-0 in the series, and they will look to even things up on Friday against the Capitals. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Bonsoir. If you're watching in a replay, guys, hit the button down below. Subscribe. Si vous regardez, si vous écoutez l'émission après dans un replay, veuillez s'il vous plaît souscrire. Le bouton est juste ici en bas. We would love to have you guys be part of the show, part of the channel, part of our family and our group. We're trying to grow a place where we can have some civil, intelligent conversations about hockey and the Canadiens. So I'm just saying, in their series, who has a better chance? I don't know. I would say Ottawa, probably slightly better, Cosmo, but I think they're both in similar situations. I think that Toronto is probably more likely to win their series, and I think that Washington's more likely to win this series. I guess maybe Ottawa's in a little bit better spot, but I don't know. Anyways, that's it for tonight, guys. Thanks so much. Have a great night. I appreciate all of you, and I appreciate your comments, your participation. Have a great night, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.
To Hoffman, Monahan parked in front, docks to Caulfield, fires, scores!
You are about to enter Habs After Dark with Recliner Sports.